All right, so welcome back to part 2 of this series. We started in the part 1 talking about identity trauma, and so when I started, it started like, okay, why is she StephREDD? And then she went into the story that is just a masterclass on its own. If you missed it, please go catch that episode because it's going to help you lay the foundation of what this second part is going to be about. And so the topic we're really covering, so StephREDD here is an identity and communications coach, and she's just uncovered some very, very powerful elements that we as humans need to know, need to understand to be able to live a wholesome life, right? Talking about you being self-aware, understanding your identity, knowing how to communicate that identity with the world so that you can show up as the better version of yourself all the time. And so in this particular episode, I want to continue on that conversation to now say, how can we really, beginning with self-awareness, what are some ways that we can begin to become more aware of ourselves, and especially in asking those questions, those soul-searching questions that will help us get to the bottom of the matter.
So at this point, I'm just going quickly say get Spot Me. And Spot Me was, yes, that tool that I developed 4 years ago to deal with these things, to ask those questions. So all the possible questions that you could ever ask yourself, or you're running away from asking yourself, I ask you there. And it starts from, so I broke it down into 5 sections. Identity, questions around identity, questions around your strengths, questions around weaknesses, questions around opportunities, and questions around threats. And starting from identity first, such things like, who am I? That's the toughest question.
Absolutely.
Now, another trauma that I experienced, which led to the birth of Spot Me, was when I lost my job. And, it's one thing if you are fired for incompetence, or maybe they're downsizing and you're one of those that pretty much the company can let go. But it's another thing if you're being fired for reasons of saying, so what they said was, I do not fit into their way. Of which, before saying that, my regional head at the time had said, you are a fantastic HR professional and you do a great job at what you do. It's just that you don't fit into our way.
What way though?
And then I ask, what is that way that you haven't told me in 4 months? And there was no response. I think what traumatized me most was the fact that I didn't know what I did. I was like, I had given sweat, blood, and sleepless nights. And, I had gotten feedback of, you're one of the best HRs we've ever had. I've gotten such feedback like, you do such great job. Sometimes wonder if we're going to catch up with you. So when that came, when I did my own scorecard based on what I had done, I gave myself an A star. I was like, let me not be too proud. Let me just be on A, right? Let them be the one to give me. I had seen the output, right? Not with words, of things that I had done on paper, in environment, with employee engagement, with everything. So when I was asked to leave, I think, I don't know how many times, I probably lost count of how many times I asked myself, what did I do? What did I do? How did I get here? And for the first time in my life, I lost myself. Because I felt in every other place that I have worked, I'd had people in key positions tell me, you're fantastic at what you do. I had people in key positions tell me, you are one of the best that this organization has. So when this happened,
it was a shock.
It made me disbelieve every other good thing I had ever heard. And I was like, every other person is a lie. For this to happen to me like this, they must have been lying to me. They weren't telling me the truth.
Wow.
I doubted myself. I lost, as confident, I've always been the confident one. I've always been outspoken. I've always been that person that asks the question that everybody's afraid to ask. Oh, they said management said we should not. Oh, which management?
Which of the managers?
So that I will know who to go and meet. I say, sir, we heard that. Who give me a name? And that person you don't want, I will go meet the person. Good afternoon, sir. I heard that so. For example, I was working in a place where resumption, and my employment letter says resumption at 9
a.m. Okay.
8 a.m. closure by 5 p.m. And then I resume by 9, by 8, 5 p.m. I go home, next day I come back, they're like, why did you close by 5? I said, that's closing time now. I said, no, that's only on paper. I said, why? But that's only on paper, we don't close by 5. I said, who said so? I said, that's how it is. So I said, okay. The managing director is aware, he signed my paper. Let me go and meet him. I don't go and meet him, but why? And I went to meet him, like, sir, I'm being questioned that I left by 5, but that's because that's what's on my employment letter. Is there something else I need to know? And then he just all around that even if people close by 5, if you know your job, don't you know you shouldn't close by 5? So at the end of the day, he made it evident that okay,
it was an unwritten
law. So now I've heard from the source's mouth, from the horse's mouth, or from the camel's mouth. I know that, okay, I know what I'm running with, which is what we need to learn to do to avoid the herd mentality. The herd mentality is everybody's doing it, so let's do. Everybody's doing this. Oh, this is what is raining, let us do. Right?
Jumping on
without
trends.
jumping on every single trend, without asking where's the source of it, where is it going to, what's the benefit, long or short term for me? So, having been one that is so confident, I lost my confidence. I lost it so much that I remember when that first few weeks when I lost my job, I told my children's nanny, if anybody comes asking for me, tell them I'm not around. And when the children come back from school, they say, Mommy, you didn't go to work. And I'm like, I didn't go. Because normally I come back late, they come home, and I come to meet them at home. And now they're coming to meet me at home. At home, and I'm like, what's going on? My brother-in-law came once. Oh, I'm like, I'm on leave. He came the next week, I'm on leave. By the end of the 4th week, I knew that I've left. This is no longer left. I've left it, right? But it was traumatizing, and it brought me to ground zero. And at ground zero was, now before then I would introduce myself. So who are you? I'm StephREDD, a regional HR manager, Nigeria, and I call the other country I used to cover. I'm certified global HR practitioner, global HR senior HR, blah blah blah. So I used to define myself
identity with
by my status, by my job role, or if it comes to marriage, by my marital name, because sometimes I'm like, I am. So if I want to prove to them, because there's now this unconscious thing of single women are not respected, which makes us react anyhow. And I'm like, I am Mrs. Kadiri. Status is what I used to define myself. So when I lost that job, I'm like, who are you going to say you are now? You not get work. So I can't sit with HR professionals because I feel I no longer belong. I can't sit with anyone 9-to-5ers because I feel I no longer belong.
Wow.
So it totally crushed my identity. And thank God I was already a certified coach at the time. So I did have a suicidal thought.
Wow.
The thought came of, just end it. And then I was like, no, I don't back down. I've never been that person that backs down. I fail an exam and I go back to do it. I fail and I go back because I am not one that leaves a Goliath undealt with. So I deal with the Goliath, I deal with his brothers, I deal with his relatives, and I move on. So I don't want to move into my future something that I have not. No. So I go back and repeat that examination. I go back and repeat. I failed a professional exam. I went back and it cost me an arm and a leg to write it, and then I failed it, plus the money lost, plus the shame of failing it. And I said, no, if someone can
This
pass
is
it,
not
I can
the
pass.
verdict.
No, that's not the final verdict. I went back to write it.
It's not over until I wrote.
And when I wrote it, when I passed it the second time, I said, "Where is your sting?" And this time, so at the time I wrote it in Nigeria when I failed it. The next time I was going to write it, they had moved it to Ghana. And then the first thought that came, because the brain is programmed to self-protect you, right? So the first thing that came of, if you are going to fail, it's going to be international failure. You are going to write it in Ghana. So that thing of, don't go. Are you sure? And I was like, and so it was the same thing with all the dealing with the fear of all that I've been doing since I came for this holiday.
Yeah.
Facing all those slides and going high, the fear for highs. I'm like, what if I win? Instead of saying, what if you fail? What if I win? The brain will hardly ask you what if you win. You would have to teach it how to respond.
Wow.
So in that instant, I'm like, what if I win? I'm going for this. And even if I fail, I will come again. So I went in there and I prayed. And I said, okay, beyond prayer, all the things that I've read. When we finished the exam and it just shows congratulations, I started shouting.
Woo!
And then the invigilator was like, madam, you have to keep it down. I was like, you
don't
know
understand
what I have been through or where I'm coming from.
Wow.
And I was on the streets of Ghana, I was shouting, it was Global Professional in Human Resources exam. And there I was shouting, oh GPHR, where is your sting? Oh gosh, the excitement. I was like, yes!
Victory is sweet.
Victory is sweet. And for the sake of that sweetness, you must persevere. Oh yes, you must persevere. For the sake of what you see.
That's so deep.
You must persevere.
If we're going to plug that in as Christians, it's like for the sake of the glory.
For glory of the goal ahead, you persevere.
Carry the cross.
Right? And that was pretty much it for me. So every time, even when I face a challenging situation, and one thing about winning, which I was telling my children the other day, when you face a challenge in your present, remember of a win that you had in your past. And tell yourself, if I could win then, I can win now.
So these are some of the questions that we should start to ask
ourselves. Yes.
So when you spot, how do we even first of all spot? Because there's something we talked about earlier on, and I remember when we were having another conversation before this session, talking about how the worst part of it is that a lot of people don't even know.
Yes.
Like they don't even recognize the fact that they have trauma. So how can they bring themselves to that point
of self-awareness?
Yes.
Now I don't know if you ever heard of the Johari window.
Yes.
And in my coaching sessions and my communication training sessions, I always expose them to the Johari window and tell them it's one thing to be. So everything I'm doing now is based on my awareness of my conscious behavior. But trauma leaves you, just like you said, locked away. Those things that are locked away are actually producing unconscious behaviors that you're not aware of. So which is why you need to ask questions. Question yourself. I first started with, who am I? What are my attributes? What are my characteristics? What do I hate? What do I like? Why do I hate what I hate? Why do I like what I like?
Because I don't like what I hate.
That was it, right? So those are basic questions. You have to just be able to stop. Hey, I don't like it.
Calm down.
Catch it.
Why?
Hey.
And
where is the source?
Wait. Let me come in here, because I think I kind of, especially for those of us from Africa, I kind of understand a little bit where this is coming from, especially when you say why. Do you know that as babies, as children,
why are you asking why?
It is natural, it is follow come, if you understand what I mean. When kids,
like I call my younger son questionnaire,
as infants, as children, they are always why, and they're so good at asking it, but we are so
up until
good.
they are shut down.
We are so good at shutting them down.
Yes, up until they're shut down, because it is the fear of answering. Of which is why I also tell my sons to say, I don't know. It's okay not to know. Why? Let's check the dictionary. Why? I'm not sure. If I know, I would say. Otherwise, let's also check the dictionary. Right? And I'll quickly tell about an experience I had with my first son when there was an assignment they gave him to do. And then he did the assignment. and he wrote whatever, and I said, no, that's not the answer. That's not the answer. What makes you feel? I'm like, and he's like, this is the answer. I'm like, you not listen. This is the answer. And he was arguing with me. Mama was like, this boy doesn't respect me. Let me show him. Let him know
that I'm your mama.
That I know this answer. Oh yeah, let's Google it. We Googled it and he was right.
Hey, okay, how did you handle it?
He was about 7 then. And then I said, okay, let's continue. And then my coaching mind just said,
Auntie, don't do that.
You are about teaching this boy, 1, how not to take responsibility for his wrong. 2, to be egotistical. And he's going to think it is okay. So in that instance, I swallowed, that was where
why?
It was from there that I wrote this thing of pride is fat-free, 0% calorie, 0% is chewable. Know when to swallow it for the sake of the ultimate goal. What's the ultimate goal? To ensure that he has the right mindset. So I swallowed the pride. Heavy pill. And then I said, I'm sorry, you were right, I was wrong. That is something our parents never did.
Yeah.
They would do everything to preserve their reputation. But the thing is, as human beings, we're all fallible.
Sure.
And it's okay to accept your vulnerability. It's okay to not know. It's okay to say, oh, you know this, I don't. Now that is something, because we were raised that way, it's difficult breaking, but it's an intentional effort
thing
to
that
break.
we now have to do.
It's a conscious effort to say I'm sorry. It's a conscious effort to actually engage. And even if they step out of line as children, because their rational brain is not yet functional up until 18, they're still pretty much moving from the instinctive and emotional brain. We as adults now need to teach them how to think rationally. But many of us are still stuck in our emotional brain.
So we just pass that on.
So we pass that on. And one thing about trauma, particularly if you experience trauma between ages 0 and 18, where your emotional brain is still strong, many people are still stuck in that emotion.
And even though they are growing.
You have grown older, you are 50, but you're still stuck at age 15 at a trauma. So you now have to be able to activate the reasoning brain. The reasoning brain is the one that questions. The reasoning brain is the one that thinks choices and consequences. The reasoning brain is the one that thinks, what else? How else?
How else can
the emotional
this
brain
out?
is why me. The emotional brain is
victim.
give me. The emotional brain is always the one that feels victimized. It's not my fault, it's your fault.
Yours.
The emotional brain looks for who to blame.
This is what a lot of people are operating.
And that is where many adults are operating from. And the sad thing is, we get married like that.
Hey.
So we marry. I'm trying to deal with, I've not dealt with mine, you've not dealt with yours. We get married and then we wonder why it doesn't work. And then we don't ask questions as to how we are pointing fingers at someone else. Meanwhile, there's something deeply wrong with us.
Oh my God. Guys, do you see why you need a coach? When I started this episode, when I started this segment, the reason is a lot, I've heard people like, all these coaches say, what did they do? Not be only talk.
They play tense.
Hey, is it not talk? How can you be talking and be calling money? Like, do you think money grow on tree? That's part of the program that is running here. You don't know. You don't know, right? So I was saying that people think like coaches don't do a lot. Like, what do they do other than talk? No, coaches don't just talk. They help you on your transformation journey. And if you've listened to this episode at all from the beginning, part 1 and part 2 now, you would know that, okay? You would have seen it. Like, if you really listened in and start to ask yourself some of the questions that Coach Steph here has raised, you will know that you're already on a journey to transformation. You're already on a journey to transformation. So as we kind of round this up, I just wanted to give us 1, 2, 3 steps in that, where we stopped was, trying to question yourself and how we can really begin to, that's becoming self-aware first of all, and now we can just ask those questions. Are there some, you've mentioned 3 already. You've mentioned the who am I question, then the why question, right? The why. So always question yourself why. But I have come based on my personal experiences, is that even the why question, sometimes we don't know how to answer it. I don't know if it's because we are running away from it.
Or because the why is, in coaching, we are taught to use less of why questions.
Oh, really?
Because why could, particularly if you're speaking to someone, it's somewhat intrusive or considered antagonistic, like you're attacking. Like, why did you do that?
Oh, okay.
Right? Why did you do that why somewhat puts you in a self-defense mode. And you want the person to be forthright, forthcoming with whatever it is that is making them do what they do. Of which is the same thing when you are in a terrible situation. The last thing you want to ask yourself is, why me? Why did this happen to me? But rather ask yourself more questions like, what can I learn from this? What could I have done differently? What can I do now? How else can I do it? How else can I engage myself? Where else can I try? So such questions are what, where, how, when should I start? Which is where, particularly when you get into aspects of goal setting, is those kind of questions you should ask yourself. When am I going to start? When am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? Who am I going to collaborate with?
I get that part, but I'm going to come back to the why again, because, for example, the first instance of catching our thoughts to say, I'm thinking this way. Why am I thinking?
Okay, so that's
so when is the why question too much, or when does the why question becomes a defensive thing that it becomes like an attack? Like, how do you, because this time around what we're doing here is trying to understand how to question ourselves, not even question. So don't start with other people, start with yourself first. So how do I question myself with the why, to understand why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, or why I'm reacting the way I'm reacting, that I don't get to that point where I'm now defending to my own self.
Okay, so it's not, you don't totally wipe out the why question. Why question is important, has its significant role as well. Now, if it is someone that is already self-aware, the why question is good, right? So you can actually say, so for example, when you say, what are like 3 questions that I believe you have to be able to ask yourself is, 1, who am I? Which is a question of identity. And that also includes, why do I act the way I act? Why do I do what I do? What do I want to achieve? Who do I want to become? And I'm pretty much a backward forward person. Rather, I walk from the end. Is it backward forward or forward backwards? Forward backwards.
Okay, you future face and then
I future face and walk backwards.
Come backwards or walking
right. As against working from the present, because it's easier for me to make choices now based on a potential consequence or outcome that I have seen in my mind. So I know a lot of, let's live in the moment, let's enjoy the moment. I am present. When I mean I'm present, I know how to make the best of moments. I know how to enjoy, because anxiety comes when you are lost in the future that you haven't experienced, and then you're missing out on being present. Right? Now, anxiety is most often, which is part of what people trauma that go to trauma experience as well. You are anxious about a history not repeating itself in the future.
And then you miss out on
you miss out on making the moment the best of the moment. Yes. So that has happened in the past. I can't change it. The future is determined by what I do today. So there's really no future. The only thing we ever experience as human beings is a today. You lose today, it becomes the past. You never get to tomorrow.
So you can actually affect tomorrow more by being intentional today.
So when we see ourselves in that position of, who am I? How did I get here? Why do I respond the way I respond? Why do I talk the way I talk? Why do I dress the way I dress? Why do I think the way I think? Why do I eat the way I eat? Ask all those questions. What do I want to become?
So then you can then...
Who do I want to be? Based on that, How is what I am doing now limiting or leading me to that? Limiting me from becoming that, or leading me to becoming that? So the tracking is, you pretty much have to take stock of where you are. Now take stock of taking stock of where you are is recognizing who you are, recognizing who you have become. Now, one of the things I could almost shut people down when they say, that's how I am. I said, that's not how you are. That is who you have become, based on what you have progressively seen, heard, and experienced through the different environments of your life. In some cases, as a function of a DNA transfer, which you also have to be conscious of asking, what is my health history? What is the family health history?
Wow.
How do I ensure not to unlock something? Because it is possible there are people that, let's use diabetes, for example. There are people who develop it by lifestyle.
Okay.
There are people who get it by DNA transfer, by inheritance, genetic inheritance. Your father had it, your mother had it, wash yourself, right? Now, both ways, you are the one that will open the canister. You open the canister by eating anyhow.
But when you are aware, you can.
When you are aware, you can now say, it is there. What do I need to do to manage it, not to tip open the can? That is what awareness does. So asking yourself such things as becoming aware is not just of you. You are an offshoot of genealogy. Where am I? What is the traumas that may have been dealt with in my line? And for those that are very religious, prayer does not take it away. It is your action that will take it away.
Say that again, please.
Oh, prayer does not take away bad behavior. Prayer does not take away rudeness. Prayer does not take away
anger.
Prayer does not take away emotional instability. You have to work it out. You work out your own salvation.
With fear and trembling.
You have to work it out. So when you have prayed, you are praying for strength to work it out. You are praying for strength to shut up when you need to be shut. You are praying for strength to swallow your pride when you need to, and speak to say I'm sorry, or to ask questions to clarify an intent that is not clarified. So that by the time you have prayed and you say it, you don't feel like you lost anything, but you now have the courage to do it. That is faith with works. But what we do sometimes is we just think because we have prayed about it, it's all okay. If you pray, you stay on the mountain, you do all you want to do, you don't come down and put your hand to work, probably waiting for something to happen. Hunger is gonna beat you. It's just like someone said, I want to have a child, you don't have intercourse with your spouse.
Okay.
It's not, there's only one immaculate conception. You pray about it, pray that everything aligns, that the eggs and the seeds, everything aligns, and then you meet. And then it happens. Right? So going back to asking questions, ask those, these are salient questions that we must ask. You're where, you're who you have become. Present, you're who you want to become. You're what you need to do in the process. Right, so those are significant questions that at least you must ask to now begin to track. So the longest part of it would be the how do I become who I want to become. The initial part, so the initial part of becoming aware of who am I? How did I become like this? How did I get here? Those questions, yes, okay. So how did I get here? Okay, when you track all of that, that is voluminous on its own. Who do I want to become? Envision it. Where do I want to get to? Okay. What is the difference between that and this?
So
it is this. Okay. What do I need to do to fill in this gap? That is what you do progressively. So who you are and all the discovering is from past into present. Who you want to be is future. What you need to do to get there is present.
You know, this thing you just said now, if you sit on it alone, it's okay. And it's one, for me, what I'm hearing is this is the reason that you can't be in competition with another person.
You can't. You not be
because you on your own, you are a competition.
You are a competition with yourself.
Full competition. Your past versus
That's
your
it.
presence and your future.
You're in competition with
yourself. So you're looking at your past and saying, how did I get here? Does it look like if I continue on this trajectory, I am going to get to where I want to get to? Man, this has been a whole masterclass. Like, I don't want to take because of that. Please, if you need more, if you want to know more, if you want to understand more, if you feel like with everything they've said, I think I'm already diagnosing myself, and I think I feel that I've been traumatized one way or another. You've asked yourself this question: why do I act? Why do I react to this thing like this? And you've noticed that it was when I was 3 years old. They asked me a question in class. I stood up and I answered, and everybody laughed at me. And so since then, every time I have to stand in front of people, I would rather die than do that, because I do not want to be laughed at.
Interestingly, that's exactly the scenario. Someone I coached that took, so he actually came for coaching. Eventually, had to go back to therapy, because people come for coaching, but then coaching is supposed to move you from functional to an optimal place. Therapy, coaching is supposed to help you deal from your now to your future. Therapy helps you deal from your past, to reconcile your past to your present, so that you can be more functional to move into your future. So the challenge he was having was from moving. He recognized in the course of the coaching that it wasn't a present thing, it was a past thing. So we had to go back.
Deal with it.
So we had to go back to find, and this was pretty much it. I'm an introvert. And sometimes
really?
He was really not. I said he hasn't. So have you always been an introvert? No. There was a time he was always all there. Up until one day on the assembly ground, they did something happened, and then he was brought out and embarrassed.
Ooh.
And since then,
he entered into a shell.
He got into a shell. And it was in the course of the session that I said, oh wow, actually, it's since then that I don't like to stand in front of crowds. It's since then I don't like to speak in front of people. It is since then, secondary school, a full-grown man that calls himself an introvert was actually stuck in an experience of teenage years. And then you define yourself, I'm an introvert, that's how I am. I'm an extrovert, that's how I am.
You define yourself by your past experiences.
By your past experiences. That's what you can hold on to. And introversion does not mean you can be a confident introvert, and you can be a timid extrovert.
This is the third time or the fourth time that I'm saying that we are going to round it up. But we are going to round it up. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for, this is such an in-depth session, and this is the reason why you need to work with a coach, because sometimes a coach is not even what you need, but when you work with one, they can help you decipher what you need. They can point you in the direction of what the issue is, because most times coaches, like the last coach I featured, which episode is going to drop soon, says, as a coach, I don't talk, I listen. I listen and I ask questions. So what coaches does, what they do for you is to help you, is to guide you in asking the salient questions that would help you make the right decision. So the whole work is still on you.
Your thoughts and unlock your perspectives towards possibilities.
Exactly.
And then you're now able to make right choices.
Right? But the work is still on you. So if you're seeking around running for coaches who are going to do done for you services, if anybody is offering you that's a very long offer, and they're just going to chop your money. But when you're working with a real coach, they'll tell you it is not a done for you service. We are here, we're going to give you the tools, we're going to lead you in the right direction, we're going to give you the principles, but you have to teach you how to navigate. Yes, but you have to run with it. So if you are with everything we've said on this episode, and you feel like, I think really I'm dealing with some traumas, right? You want to work with a coach, because why StephREDD is special, or why she is the best person to work with, is because she's a coach, but she's also a therapist, right? So if in the process of coaching you, we find out, that, hey, this is not a coaching problem, this is a therapy problem, this is something from the past holding you back, then we can go back to that past, deal with it, and then come back to the present so you can skyrocket into the future. And I kid you not when I said, maybe not everybody, but at least 98% of us, especially for those of us from Africa, are walking traumas. We've dealt with a lot, and some of us don't even know we've dealt with a lot.
Particularly those of us in Africa.
Yes, and we don't even know it. That's the saddest part. We don't know it, so we just accept that this is how I am. I am a fearful person. I'm a timid person.
That's how I am my family. Everybody,
that's
in
everybody in my family. That's how we are. No. We are so comfortable with generalizing. It's the same reason we say Yoruba people are like this, Igbo people are like this. Even after you've dealt with people one-on-one, to see that, but you just say one bad egg just kind of spreads everything. That's not right. That's not the way to live life. That's not the way to maximize life. If you really want to maximize life, you have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to see from different people's perspective before you make your own conclusion, right? So these are some of the things that coaches help you do, and it would be great if you want to work with Coach StephREDD. You can just follow her on Instagram. I am StephREDD. She has a YouTube channel as well where she gives beautiful helpful tips and nuggets around finding your identity, around communicating properly and communicating effectively. So she also does trainings for corporate bodies, retreats and things like that. So you just want to plug in, really. I'll leave the link to all of our channels, Instagram, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn, if you want to work with her corporately, and you can connect with her and go work with her. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I don't know, I guess at this point it could be part 3 or part 2, I don't know, until post-production. But if whatever this is for you, thank you so much for staying through the series, and thank you for being here until I come your way again on another session with another coach telling us what area they're covering and how they can be of help to you. My name is the energetic EJ. Once more, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Bless you too. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye.